Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar Avoiding Cyberterrorism Through Actionable Intelligence by our speaker Rico Danielson. I am Shilpa Goswami and I'll be your host for the day. We would like to go over a few house rules for our attendees. The session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which the last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to organizers or our speakers, use the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. An important announcement for certificate of attendance. Participants need to attend the complete webinar to qualify for the certificate. Also, should fill in the survey form, which will be sent in the attendees thank you email and answer correctly the 3 multiple choice questions based on the webinar. The certificate of attendance shall be sent to you within the next 5 to 7 working days after the event. Our speakers for today's session, Rico Danielson. He is an information security and digital forensics professional with over 15 years of expertise managing incident response and digital forensic matters for domestic and international clients. He is experienced in handling cyber breaches, security incidents, and digital forensics in the healthcare, financial, and retail spaces. Rico has partnered with law firms, government agencies, and private clients to provide digital forensic services for high-profile and newsworthy cyber incidents. In addition to being a cybersecurity professional, he is a U.S. Army combat veteran. Without any further delay, I would hand over the session to you, Rico.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate everybody's attendance. And good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone. I hope you guys are doing amazing. So today's topic, we're actually gonna be talking about, how we're gonna avoid cyber terrorism through actionable intelligence, right? And what that means is when we look at certain things, we notice that there's so much intelligence out there. There's so much information out there, but how do we action it, right? How do we go about doing that? So one of the things we need to really define is what is cyberterrorism? And I'm going to look over here because I have reference notes, okay? So cyberterrorism is the act of disrupting or disabling some sort of municipality, predominantly healthcare, cities, governments, or something like that, to cause damage or panic, right? Now, what we do is we also look at it from a business perspective is cyberterrorism from a business perspective is to cause some sort of damage and also cause some sort of disruption in our business. Now we're starting to see this on a global presence, right? And we've also seen it on a global presence. We have, anywhere from Russian threat actors all the way to Chinese threat actors to North Korean threat actors trying to pivot and gain our vulnerable our system, right? And what we're kind of doing is actually playing this game of attritional warfare and also informational warfare. There's actually an FM 3-24, which is a counterinsurgency field manual that we use in the special operations community to actually wage wars of information, gathering information, misinformation, disinformation. Everybody thinks that cyber terrorism is a new thing. All it is really, in fact, is actually a terrorism with a cyber in front of it, right? And technology, cyber terrorism, informational warfare, attrition. And what happens during this space and also in the cyberspace is there's a lot of different mechanical parts that go into cyber terrorism, right? One might be DDoSing, might be trying to take down critical infrastructure, cause panic and hysteria. But the other one, way before that, was the reconnaissance and espionage. And in the espionage space, we're starting to see quite a bit of, China's actually really good about corporate espionage, implanting and infiltrating high executives, saying, hey, we're here. The thing what they like to do, especially in the corporate espionage and then also the special warfare tactic, is force multiplication, right? We invade a space, we actually get asset development, and we start developing these assets within our environment. So it might be an executive, it might be a secretary, it might be a comptroller, it might be someone else. And the purpose of the cyber terrorism organization is to gain access to these businesses, to the critical infrastructure, right? And the way they do that is by buying their way through. Hey, I've seen a critical case once come up. Russian threat actor and also a Chinese threat actor approached an executive, said, hey, we'll go ahead and buy you $1 million home. We'll go ahead and pay for your children's education. All we need is this information. And luckily this executive didn't do it, but it's very fascinating that these cyber threat actors organizations, also cyber terrorist organizations, really understand who you are and how far you go and what is really in the belly of the beast, right? And this the critical details of you, who you are, what you owe, what's your mortgage, where your kids are going to school and whatnot. So don't put it past these cyber terrorist organizations to actually conduct some real in-depth feasibility. So what we notice in the hacking or operations, also organization for nation states, is there's kind of two different factions. Mind you, there's multiple factions, but I like to break them out two major factions. Nation state, right, is maybe it might be the Republic of China, or the Russian Federation, or the Iranian Federation, or Brotherhood, or whatever the case may be. And they're more so for nation states, like this government to government attacks. We see it all the time, and that's kind of what their operation. Now on this side, we'll just conglomerate everybody together, which is you have hacktivists, you have different threat actor organizations, and they hack for a purpose, right? And they're actually doing stuff more so for criminality and organized crime. And the way to better combat these two factions we have, right, nation state and threat actors, right, kind of two different things, but and there's sometimes crossover, they work together sometimes they don't, is to understand, we need to understand how these cyber terrorism organizations operate. Now, cyber terrorism organizations and cyber ransomware negotiations, cyber threat actors, and also malware deployers and all these other ones as well. This is a billion-dollar business, right? There is organization and structure here. So you'll have a headquarters of, let's just say Maze Group or Fancy Bear or something like that. You'll have the organizational headquarters, right? And then you'll have its affiliates and generals actually conducting the terrorists, cyber terrorism, the threat acting and whatnot, and the cyber extortion. And then they report upwards so they can actually split the pie. Some of these deals are actually done based upon how much data you exfiltrated, who you exfiltrated it from, how long did it take you, and then also furthermore, these actually are done percentages as well. As we can see, these are very complex business things. Especially there is a code amongst these. There's a code amongst cyber threat actors and also cyber ransomware, terrorism as well. One of the things we need to do is actually kind of bring this all back together. And when we bring it all back together, we have a thorough understanding of who we're dealing with and why we're dealing with them, right? The bigger thing is that we have to understand how can the hidden information in the dark side and the dark web of criminality help us out in our better business, right? Understanding our threat actors is one thing, understanding how they do business is another thing. So as we divulge into these items, right, or as we get into the dark web, the deep web, the cyber terrorism organization, the cyber ransomware groups and whatnot, there are going to be some big challenges here, okay? Where you are might be an individual team. Let's just say you have a 30-person team, or you might be a solo practitioner, right? Either way, the common objective goal here is to make sure that we can address these threats head on. And how do we do that, right? The bigger thing is to understand how can we understand what is needed to better defend against our environment. So one is to know your environment. Number two is to really thoroughly understand who more likely is your threat actors. If you're in the healthcare space, that might be a healthcare threat actor or a cyber terrorism threat actor, right? Because I'm noticing that a lot of these threat actors, what they'll try to do is completely take down a hospital. I saw one hospital completely go down, and it cost somebody's life, unfortunately. So that actually fits the parameters of cyber terrorism. These other threat actors, if you're financial, the idea is to do credit card stuffing or credential stuffing, credit card information, PII, PHI, right? To gather all those data bits information and sell those on the dark web to fuel your further threat acting motives and whatnot. Some of the best ways to do is, and also is a great way to do, is adapt certain skill sets and skill crafts. Some of them might look like a CTI, right? A cyber threat actor intelligence. What is important to you? What is important to your business? What does your business look like? What does your environment look like? And how are you going to block and tackle? How are you going to monitor and detect? And furthermore, how are you going to respond? Remember, our response is our responsibility, okay? We are the first and last responders for our companies to ensure that we have a mitigatable defense. If not, our companies are just going to be blown in the wind and nothing's going to really be actionable or profitable for us. So the bigger thing to take away from that is to understand who we are, what our business is, what technology stack goes around our business, and how can we protect that? That's called modeling, right? How can we model that? And then we package that up and we say, hey, who more than likely is our threat actors, okay? So one of the bigger things we have to be mindful is the role of threat intelligence. I've seen threat intelligence go one of two ways: really good or really bad. Okay. The really good part, or the really bad part, is they call it sounding the siren or the boy who cried wolf. This is a fairy tale, right? Hey, I have an issue. There's a cyber threat actor. There's something going to be going on this date. Well, in cybersecurity, there's always something going on. There's always a cyber threat actor, and there's always will be attacks. So ringing the bell of an alarm is not going to be good enough, right? You actually have to have quantifiable and qualifiable leads of cyber threat intelligence to ensure you have actionable stuff. You're gonna have so much information coming at you at one time that all the threat intelligence feeds may not be applicable to you, right? I work in multiple environments, and I see all the time that, hey, this brand new threat acting group is out there, a cyber terrorism group is out there, and also they're deploying specific type of malware in these specific type of environments, and none of those are applicable to me or my clients, right? So what we do is that we actually culminate all together and say, okay, what is really applicable to us, and tune out the white noise, tune out the noise that doesn't belong to you or doesn't pay you any merit, and we try to go from there. And the role of your cyber threat intelligence department or person is to bring forward the risk and likelihood and liability of something happening. And it has to be quantifiable and qualifiable. If not, it's just going to be information. And on the budget line item, as a CISO, right? I've said as a CISO, a VP, an executive as well, you kind of look at these things and say, okay, what value is threat intelligence? If there's no value, there's no actionable value to avoid cyber terrorism or cyber, cyber ransomware. Then it'll be gone by the next year, right? So that's where you have to kind of show your value on those things. Oh, truly apologize, guys. I guess we're done, and that's kind of wraps up the conclusion. But what I want to do is actually stop right there and ask if anybody has any questions, because I kind of went through that a little bit fast.
Thank you very much, Rico, for an informative session, and our attendees share the same sentiments. Now, before we begin with the Q&A, I would like to inform all the attendees that this session is in sync with EC Council CTIA program. EC Council CTIA maps to many roles in the industries like threat intelligence, analyst, threat analysis and reporting, vulnerability management and threat intelligence, engineer, etc. Anyone with a CTIA certification is eligible for 9,000 plus job vacancies globally with an average salary of 100,000 and $324. If you are interested to know more, kindly take part in the poll that's going to be conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training, and we will reach out to you soon.
Perfect.
Okay. Riku, shall we start with the Q&A?
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
So our first question is, how can we identify a cyber terrorism and how can we defend it?
So how can we identify and how can we defend against cyber terrorism? Okay, so what I would do is actually take a look at your business, right? Look at your specific type of business. Let's just say you're in healthcare, okay, and you're running a hospital. Some of the things I would have to do is actually take a quick inventory of what's my technology stack, what's in the hospital, what are the main critical crown jewels that actually run the hospital, and then from there, kind of make sure, one, it's secure. Number two, if it's not secure, how are you going to be secure? And then number three, knowing what we have, let's just say we have 2019 servers and whatnot, and we have everything that's quite a bit vulnerable. We have no patch management. Now we know that for a fact. What are some of the threat actors that, one, specialize in healthcare, and number two, specialize, let's just say, in Windows Server 2009 R2, right? What are some of the threat actors that actually do that? And then from there, I would say, how do they go attacking those type of environments and kind of understanding those TTPs, right? And then also understanding what IOCs are out there. If it's open IP addresses going to Russia, right? Can you go ahead and block those? If it's just vulnerability patch management and how can we go about mitigating those, that's another idea, right? Forward-facing applications, those are the big ones for companies that actually bite them in the butt quite a bit, very quickly, very simply. Your AWS environment, that's another big one. A lot of medical companies have shifted to the cloud, but no one realized that the cloud is just wide open and nobody's doing anything about it. So that's an idea behind it. So that's how I would kind of preface that one if I was in the healthcare space.
Thank you, Rico, for answering that question. My next question is, uh, I'm a professional information communication technology expert and a certified ethical white hacker on a cybersecurity, web developer and engineer, DevOps engineer, web marketer, digital marketing, inclusive all web engine like SEO, SEM, SEA, SES, SERP, PPC, and SMM, mobile app developer. Uh, what he is
Okay.
trying to ask. Actually, like he have done many questions. I really don't know what he is trying to ask. Anyways, we'll take it offline. Our next question is, what role a CISO can play or does play in preventing cyber terrorism in the organization?
Yeah. So the CISO actually is a very big component of driving the ship, right, from a strategic perspective all the way to the tactical perspective. I honestly believe that if you're a CISO and you don't have the technical chops, you might need to be able to get those. One of the things I would definitely say is, as a CISO, you should have the technical foresight of your business and where you need to go and how you need to go, and your guidance of what technology stack you're going to be approving, and then also what technologies are you going to be conducting, and then more importantly, what is the threat intelligence gathering the process in your practice going to be looking like? If you're a small shop and you have something like Threat Hunt Thursdays where you're actually going out there trying to do some threat hunting and doing some threat intelligence gathering, I think that might be a good idea. If you're a bigger organization, you might hire a couple of different, maybe 2 to 3 people with a mixed background of IR, forensics, and incident response, and then and a little bit of intelligence as well, and then you cultivate that practice as well. I think as a CISO, you are going to have to drive the model and also drive the practice of it, and you have to set the vision for it and the success criteria for it. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Rico, for answering that question. The next question is, how exactly to start with dark web?
Dark web. Okay, so remember, the dark web is actually a interesting place, right? To get to the dark web, there's multiple security approaches you have to do. Anywhere from spoofing your MAC address, IP address. I wouldn't use your own laptop or your device. I would kind of use something else, maybe a Tails, if you will. But also, let's just say you don't want to do all that. You just want to just get to the dark web, see what's out there, see what you're finding. A dark web, remember, is a IP ranges of IP addresses, so you have to know what you're looking for. You really have to be insightful and also tactical of like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Stolen credit cards. Here's where I know what to look for. Here are the known threat acting groups. Okay. Using multiple onion layers and whatnot might help you out. But also, there are now subscriptions, right? You have tons of organizations, companies out there that offer them for pretty fair, competitive price. That you can actually just go to their platform, interject your information, say, hey, I want to see these things that pertain to my company. Are there any compromised emails? Any compromised people's information, PHI, PII, social securities, credit card information, stuff like that. I'm a person of going the fastest route with the least resistance. So I would just go ahead and buy a subscription, make it happen, and then actually use that information for quantifiable, qualifiable, actionable intelligence versus spending so many hours of combing through data that just might not be useful to you, right? If you use OSINT or if you use any sort of open source tool or however you get the dark web, there just might be so much information you might be wasting weeks at a time versus going this way. You might capture more and more or get more progressive on weeks at a time. Let me know if that helps.
Thank you, Rico, for answering that question. Our next
Yeah.
question by Benedicta. He wants to know, what are the steps of conducting a CTI?
Yeah. So some of the steps, right? One, you have to understand your environment, right? Understand your environment. And then what I like to do is I like to just narrow down the most simplistic way. What is the likelihood of which threat actors coming knocking at my door, right? I mean, you're always gonna have threat actors, you're always gonna have, and then I'll kind of model around that. remember, so like I'll give you an example. If you can jump in your local firewall and start seeing traffic going to and from either China or Russia, that's a great starting point. Start there, kind of doing the network forensics analysis right there, understand the IP addresses, the DNS queries, and also understanding where information is going, how it's getting there. And more specifically, if you have any abnormal size packets that are leaving, where are they going, and then who of the threat acting groups or the cyber terrorism groups is a little bit, you know, in those locations. And then supplementary, what I would do is actually create a threat profile, threat actor profile, cyber terrorism profile. We have cyber terrorism profile number one is, from this country, uses these attributes, uses these TTPs, and then loves to use these IOCs. And then you base a risk score on them, saying, hey, RICO cyber terrorism group from Russia loves to use Windows Server 2009, R2, loves to use these vulnerabilities. The likelihood of happening to us is very low because we use 2019, right? Something like that.
Thank you, Rico. Next question is by Mahesh Kumawat. Actually, it's a compliment for you. Rico, your fitness looks amazing. And his question is, how do we start the journey for cyber forensic investigation?
Yeah, so cyber forensic investigation is a good one. It's near and dear to my heart. You're gonna remember, whenever you show up to a cyber forensics case, I like to call us the handyman of cyber, right? That means you need to know everything. You should have every tool in your back pocket. That means you need to have a little bit of incident response. You need to have a lot of forensics, digital forensics, understanding not only the OSI layer, the OSI layers, but also understanding the technical level, and also understanding what laws apply to you in your organization. So that's a couple of different ones, right? Where I would start is actually conducting a lot of three different things. Threat intelligence, I would start understanding that for about 2 months. Incident response, how to handle an incident, because every case you handle is going to be an incident, right? It is what it is. And number three, the legal reporting requirement of digital forensics, doing the cool stuff of finding the exe, the malware, and the super cool, sexy stuff, and you're in there doing the keyboard hand jamming, stuff like that. That's about 20%. The rest, 80%, is writing the report. And remember, the one thing I've noticed when I look over people's forensics report is you have to write objectively. It's about the malware. It's about the environment. It's not, hey, this person did this. It's about the event that's going on. Try that.
Thank you, Rico, for answering that question. Next question is by Catleo. Cyberterrorism is achieved by multiple threat actor, or it can be a single individual, since you mentioned DDoS.
Yeah. So I would actually lean on the it could be led by one person, but I think it's going to be multiple organizations, just because doing a denial of service or distributed denial of service actually takes quite a bit of people. It takes roughly about 3 to 4 people, right? And you have to do it for a purpose and a cause. And that's just not the only part. The launching of the attack is the final part, right? There's so much work that goes into it, like reconnaissance, right? Understanding your target exploit, understanding the information gathering, understanding the discovery of it. So you're talking about 3 or 4 different skill sets. So right there, you're probably talking about 3, 6, 8, 12 people all together, joining together and actually conducting this cyber terrorism attack. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a group of people led by one person. If it's one person, you're going to be there for a few months handling some business. So
Thank you, Rico. Next question is by Dani. If we are trying to protect a small business with not much resources, how can we protect it? The CEO is not going to buy a 30K firewall, so what can we do? Is there any way of protecting an enterprise without expending thousands and thousands of dollars? If you are a small enterprise, how can you protect yourself?
that is a really good question, and that is a really good question. The reason I want to say that's an amazing question is because I've been down that road where you're doing 10, 20 million dollars and nobody wants to spend $40,000 on a firewall because it's an intangible, right? It's like a lamp. The lamp is on, we see the lamp, we know it works, the lamp is giving us light, but nobody really pays attention to the lamp. Same with the firewall, right? Once the firewall is up, I've seen firewall administrators be like, all right, I'm done, we're good to go. And then next year, the CISO or the CEO is like, more so the CEO and COO, look at it and go, do we really need that firewall? How much does that cost us? 40,000? We could do something else with that. I've been in that position where you have to justify value and cost. I'll be honest with you, I've seen a lot of pharmacies in the United States do nothing for cybersecurity. And the one thing they do is they go get a nice big cyber insurance policy. And I don't agree with it. I think you should do the right thing of cybersecurity and do right by your company and do right by your people and your patients and your customers and whatnot, and do the proactive thing. But in the reality situation, if a CEO or COO doesn't want to put money into a cybersecurity program, the best way to augment risk, cybersecurity insurance. And it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. Right now, a lot of insurance companies like Hiscox, CNA, all these other big ones, they're not issuing out cyber insurance, or they're issuing out like one for one, which is like if you have a $10 million policy, it's going to be a $10 million deductible, and that's just unfinancially reasonable. So that's all you can do. Then say, okay, cool. I always say this: in one way or fashion, or one way or another, you're going to pay for cybersecurity. If you're not going to pay for it, if you're not going to invest in your cybersecurity, then you're going to pay for it, right? Some of the things I've seen some wild stuff. I saw this one person. She runs a huge educational program in the United States. She's like, we're not doing cyber insurance. We'll just have $100,000 for the ransomware just in case it happens. And those some pretty big, bold moves right there. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Rico. Like we have a lot of questions for you today.
Okay, let's do
Uh,
it.
Next question is by Deborah. What log analysis tools do you recommend for Windows Server, for Linux servers?
That's cool. That's a really good, interesting one. So it could be any, like, it really depends on your budget, right? You can buy some Gucci ass or some Gucci tools, right? Where you're actually going to be using some log analysis tools, and it does a log aggregation for you. The log analysis, a correlation. It could be anywhere from, I mean, you could possibly do Splunk, Zscaler, Netscaler, all the way to a Kibana, right? Like, it really depends on your organization and your budget. So that's the first question I want to ask. Like, how much money do you want to throw at this? If you're if you have $1 million budget, perfect. Get a $200,000 tool. You need some professional services to go with it. But if you're a startup shop, you got to do it free. You got to do it free, and then you got to bring it in house and secure that and air gap that thing.
Thank you, Rico. Our next question is by Gurveen. He is a final year student for LLB, and he is doing cybersecurity, ethical hacking, which courses. So he is asking like which course is good for him for supportive and for job placements.
Yeah. So when it comes to job placement, I'll be honest with you. Getting part of groups like hacking groups, CISO groups, or whatever, and you need to have that human connection. The problem with a lot of LinkedIn stuff is if you hit somebody LinkedIn and you're like, hey, how's it going? I need some help, blah blah. You're spamming somebody, right? You need to have that one-for-one connection. You need to actually to provide value. Most of the projects that I get hit up on, or the jobs that I get hit up on, or the investment opportunities that I get hit up on, they're actually from people that I've known and I've been talking to for years, and they say, hey, how can I go about doing this? And you answer the question and you do it in a servitude way, right? Like a servant way, like, here's information, I don't want anything back, no problem. And that kind of helped me out quite a bit. The one thing that actually got me quite a bit of notoriety, and here's the secret sauce. I actually wrote articles for 5 years for free for myself, and I'll just post them as much as I can, and that would actually give me the notoriety to reach out to other people, and and then here we sit, right? So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Rico, for answering that question. Our next question is by Harish. He has two questions for you. One is, what is the path to achieve as a CTI and how much is it useful to the nation? Second one is, can you tell us your experience and what are the skills and what things we have to learn to achieve as a CTI?
Yeah. So some of the skill set you're going to need, I really believe that you're going to need to be a well-rounded individual. You need to know how to respond, incident response. You need to know how to do digital forensics and also network forensics. These are going to be your best things right there. Being able to write up a forensics report and also incident report, that's going to be another big thing, because you have to tell the story. You have to tell the story. And the first question was what again?
You want me to repeat the first question?
Yeah, the first part. Yeah, the first one, please.
What is the path to achieve as a CTI, and how much is it useful to the nation?
Yep. So, cyber intelligence and also threat intelligence is one of the things that is very valuable to big organizations and also to big corporations and also governments. I believe EC Council offers one. I think that's a really good course to go to. The other one is actually spending time in these cyber threat acting groups and community, understanding how these individuals work. I think Elon Musk said it the best is, the difference between a Harvard grad and a person who gets their certification is the person's certification generally knows how to do the job better than a Harvard grad, right? And that's very true. When I hire people, first thing I always look at is their theoretical and the principal application of implementation. Can you do the job? So if you can display your skill sets to your nation, let's say you're trying to go to the government agencies, once you get through the process and whatnot, showing them value like, hey, we're able to track information security issues and also threat intelligence, and here's how we do it. I think that'll be the proof of value for you, and that's how you can help out the government.
Thank you, Rico. I'll take last 2-3 questions for the day. So our next question is by Henry. He has 2 questions for you again. Are there common laws that deals with cyber terrorism on a global level, or are the laws regional based on specific countries? Second one is, how would a business or institution recover from a cyber terrorism attack?
So number one, let's answer your second question first. How do you recover from cyber terrorism attack? So it depends how fast you are with your backups, your disaster recovery, your incident response, and whatnot. Like if you have none of that, chances are you're gonna be stuck in the water for, I've seen companies for 18 months at a time. So, if you have nothing, if you have something, if you practice it and you rehearse it, your tabletop exercises and whatnot, I really believe you have a fighting chance to actually get in the fight. So that might be another idea. The first part was, can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah. Are there common laws that deals with cyber terrorism on a global level, or are the laws regional based on specific countries?
Yes. So in the United States, we have the Computer Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Act, but also Cyberterrorism Acts, and also ransomware negotiation laws and whatnot. So it really depends on what state you're in. For other countries, we see that a lot of them follow either GDPR or the United Nations, right? Because the United Nations is actually a pivot point to the countries. Let's just say you're going to Hungary or if you're going to Romania, right? The United Nations is a gateway into that country, and then at that point you have to respect the laws. I'll give you an example. I was doing a digital forensics in Jalisco, Mexico, right? And I went over there and I said, hey, whenever you book somebody, let's go ahead and pull their cell phone data and also the computer data as well. And immediately I got shot down. And they said, hey, we can't do that because that's a civil right thing. That means we would need to go to the judge. We would need to go talk to a clergyman or a judge or whatever the case may be and say, hey, we need to get into this person's, personal information, right? Versus the United States, pretty much as soon as there's a crime committed and you have a reasonable, a reasonable doubt to actually go get the evidence, it's game on. You can go get the cell phone, you can go get the computer and whatnot, and also the foregone conclusion result as well. Like if I knew something's there and I can prove that something's there and something is there, it's a done deal. So it really depends on what specific law you're trying to actually get into and also what country you're talking about.
Thank you, Rico, for answering that question. Our next question is by Jean. How could cyber terrorists be implicated in a cyber war between 2 states?
Yeah, so the way you do that is by gathering the most metadata as you can, factual metadata as you can, and working with different organizations, different law enforcement, different NGOs, non-government agencies, and actually targeting and actually understanding where these cyber terrorism groups are. And then at that point, once you have that information, you engage local law enforcement or federal law enforcement of that country, and you go with them if they allow it to go knock on that door and kick in the door and go get your bad guy.
Thank you, Rico.
Yeah.
I'm taking the last question. Is by Lobstorm. Taking into consideration the rapid development of technology in small drones, UAS systems, and the challenges we face as a nation in our critical infrastructure defense, what modeling tools exist to fully capture the trending threat landscape to such systems on a domestic scale? Small UAS less than 50 lbs.
Yeah. So if I understand the question correctly, it was what tools are out there, right?
Yeah,
Um, I'll put it this way: you're only as good as your tool. If you don't know how to use your tool, then it's completely useless, right? If you don't know how to fix your tool, if you don't know how to point your tool in the right direction. So a tool will only get you maybe 30% of the way. The rest is going to be upon you in harvesting and also sharpening those skill sets. So understanding threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence, better yet, just intelligence in general, whether it's physical, cyber, technology, business, whatever. You want to understand those things, fundamentals first, and then use the tool to amplify your ability to improve the nation state, your nation state intelligence enhancement, right? Or your company's enhancement or your business enhancement, stuff like that.
thank you so much, Rico, and thank you again to our wonderful speaker for answering those questions and for the great presentation and the knowledge shared to our global audiences. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. Now, before we conclude the webinar, Rico, would you like to have to give a small message to our audiences?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm always here to be of service. Hit me up on LinkedIn, wherever you need. I'm definitely here to, help anybody guide the way forward. Just remember this: we as threat intelligence, cybersecurity professionals, forensics professionals, incident response, CISOs, leaders, workers, engineers, we are the first and last response for our company. So just be mindful of that. And remember, cybersecurity is an ever growing field, and we always have to be there for each other.
Thank you so much, Rico, for the message to our audiences. Before we end the session, I would like to announce the next Cyber Talk session, Maitri Attack Framework, How to Boost Your Security Backbone, which is scheduled for November 28, 2022. This session is an expert presentation by Eva Ben, Vice President and CISO. To register for this session, please do go and visit our website www.eccu.edu cybertalk. The link is given in the chat section. Hope to see you all on November 28th. With this, we end the session. You may now all disconnect your lines. Thank you so much, Rico.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.